Joining us to unpack the US election in the context of the impact that the electoral outcome could have on South Africa, we're joined by international relations consultant Dr Charles Sinkala. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us on the program. So voting is, of course, progressing in the United States. Firstly, your impression of how these elections have been run from the campaigning all the way to election day today.
Thank you very much, and greetings to your viewers. Yeah, Fundo, it has been a dramatic move, especially when you hear that the presidential candidates for the Democrats, Biden, had to vote down due to certain unforeseen circumstances that his party thought that he won't be a stronger candidate. But, the ushering in of his deputy president, Kamala Harris, has brought in a different wave in terms of the electoral process. And I think the campaigns for, for a woman president, first woman president for the United States of America, has grown over the past period of the campaigns. But, campaigns and the rallies, they signify a different view. But this is a multi-phased elections, which determines what will happen next. Many wars around the world are depending on the outcome of the elections, and as well as the ordinary Americans would like to see their fate in terms of economic activities and many others.
Doctor, most certainly the electoral outcome will have global implications impacting economies as well as foreign conflicts, as you say, among others. But the question is, what kind of an impact will perhaps a Kamala Harris, if we had to start with her, what kind of an impact her win would have?
Her impact will be on the international foreign policy, and I think she has to review that. Mostly, she has talked about the internal wrangles in terms of the hardship, the cost of living, as compared to her opponent, who was literally and blatantly addressing the migration issue, which has affected the United States of America and many other nations in the world, of course. But we're looking at a different perspective in terms of how they look at the war in Palestine and Israel, and as well as the Russian invasion in Ukraine.
I want us to focus on reproductive rights or abortion. It's also been on the ballot today, as many commentators have said. Abortion has been quite a key argument in the presidential race, as we've seen throughout the campaigning period. Your take on its ability to swing votes in favor of one or the other today?
It's got a very significant impact. It has been debated as much as the gun laws has been debated as well. That is one of the key issues in terms of the human rights organizations and individuals on how to choose whether or not to decide on their abortion rights. And I think it's got a very deep political impact, and I think that's why both of them they're using it as a tool in order to lure electorates.
But then, if we look at Donald Trump, that specific point of reproductive health has been somewhat, or rather has posed somewhat of a challenge for him, to the point where he ended up choosing the safer position of saying abortion rights will be left to individual states to decide. Could this cautious stance closer to election day or so late in the campaigning assist his campaign to the White House in any way?
No, not really. At least, he mentioned, United States of America has independently worked. All the 50 states, they make up their own laws and regulations, and as well as their outcome in terms of the elections. Unlike other nations such as South Africa, where they've got an independent electoral commission in terms of the elections and deciding what happens in their country. But those states, among others, they decide what type of rights those citizens should have and what rights they should protect. And I think him coming out and, taking back to the states, that just empowers the governors to decide what is right for them, rather than him from the Oval Office to dictate in terms of the opinion on which direction the country has to take in terms of the abortion rights.
So meaning essentially devolving the power to the states would possibly be a great win for him.
Of course. Decentralization of power in national government has always been a challenge, especially in separation of powers. Most states, I think, before, and they've always been looking at the independence of those states with little interference from the Oval Office. even though the Oval Office has got an oversight to look at that. But they would like to be empowered. They would like to be seen that they make up their own decision for the citizens, because they are closer to the citizen than the president who is in Washington.
You've stated that foreign conflict will most certainly be impacted by a win by one or the other. With Trump, he's painted himself as a better alternative to Muslim or Arab voters who have been outraged by the carnage in Gaza. Could the war in Gaza become that ticket that sends Trump back to the White House?
Definitely. That has been viewed. And I think my other Leonard colleagues also mentioned about his policies in terms of ending the Gaza war, by stop fueling Israel to continue participating in the Gaza war. You can also remember, Mfundo, that sometime last year, President Cyril Ramaphosa traveled to United States of America. I think Joe Biden wanted to swing him or to change their foreign policy in terms of their view in terms of Palestine and Israel. But Donald Trump has come up with a robust type of approach in terms of ending a campaign of spending so much taxpayers' money which is spent on war outside the United States of America, including what is happening in Russia and invasion in Ukraine.
All right, Doctor, thank you very much for your insights this evening. That's International Relations Consultant Dr. Charles Sinkala speaking to us as we continue to monitor Election Day in the United States.